Hello, time for another breadcrumbs video. Today we are in 2 Samuel chapter 6 and 1 Chronicles 15 and 16, and they're recounting some of the same stories, but what really jumped out at me today is the story of David just celebrating, dancing unashamedly before the Lord. And he is willing to humble himself, and the Lord is his delight. I love this story of David, and of course he's held in contempt by his wife Michal, who looks down from the balcony and just thinks he's making a fool of himself as the king. And David said, I'm willing to make myself even more of a fool to take delight in the Lord and for what he's done for me. And I just love that spirit in David. And it reminds me of Paul in Romans 1:16, where he says, I'm not ashamed of the gospel. And so I love that David and Paul and these men and women of God throughout the scriptures, so many of them, great examples to us of people who just want to take their delight in the Lord and care more about what God thinks of them than what human beings think or say about them. So I love that here's David as the leader of the king of Israel, celebrating and being an example of a worshiper. And that's at the very core of who David is this man who loves God more than anything else in his life, and all that God has brought him through. And he's living out that moment of authentic abandonment before the Lord. And he's being generous with the people of Israel. And again, this is back to the man after God's own heart, and God wanting to be loving the people of Israel through David as the king of Israel. And so this is a great story for us to reflect on as we live out our days here, to be a light, to be salt and light, and to not be ashamed of our love for God, our love for Christ, to not be ashamed of the gospel, for it is the power of God unto salvation. And as we live out our lives of adoration and worship before God, and other people see that, there's going to be people that will be really excited about that and will encourage us on that journey. And there'll be some people that will mock and scoff, just like they did David. And there will be others that will be angry and will reject. And that's okay. That's part of the call of being a witness for Christ, is when they reject us, they're not rejecting us, they're rejecting him. And so we've got to be faithful to live out our lives of worship and obedience before God. And this gets back to the first commandment: have no other gods before me. And it's easy in today's day and age to for that to take a back seat to ourselves, to any number of things that could encroach and become an idol, like money or power, or even the opinions of other people. We can live our lives caring more about what other people think and what their expectations of us are, versus what God is calling us to do, and being willing to trust him and take that step out of the boat, so to speak, of obedience to do what he wants us to do. And so this example from David for us is in direct contrast with Saul. And you might remember when God confronts Saul through Samuel a few chapters back, when he didn't obey God in terms of dealing with the Amalekites, and he kept some sheep for himself, and Samuel confronts him, and he just says, I was afraid of what the people thought. And so I did what I did because I was afraid of them. And so the fear of man is what will choke out this radical abandoned worship, which is the freedom that God wants us all to walk in. His will being done in our life versus our will or anyone else's will. That will all lead to enslavement. But the true free life is the free life that is lived in complete obedience and dedication to the Lord. And so this is a great example for us to reflect on in today's chapter. Love this story of David and how it speaks to us today, and love that verse from Romans 1:16. I'm not ashamed of the gospel. And so God's raising up disciples that are not ashamed to love him and to be salt and be light to those around us in the world. God bless you all. I hope you're having a great time as we're in the story of David and all of the great lessons that the Lord can give us through David's life and through all that's unfolding to the people of Israel in this season. So have a great weekend. God bless you.